Hello again, welcome back to the cellar, welcome back to Leopard Street. Following on from a slightly frustrating time I had on Friday, which is why there was no video on Saturday, I ran trains for a little bit. I've been down here today, making a bit of a mess, but things are getting on a bit. Let's have a look, stick around. So this is the area in question. This is where I'm going to stick in a hill, a few bits and pieces out of the way. Now, as you can see, this has got a road here, pavement, back scene, and there's a road bridge over there. So this is sort of going to carry along. Now, what I'm wanting is the look of a hill that comes to about here, a little bit above rail height, so about there on the bridge. And then looks like there's been an embankment made on the top to basically account for the road. So it's like sort of the hill, there's a little bit of a cutting, but not a vast one. And then somebody's wanted to put a bridge, so there's been a bit of an embankment added. And this leaves sort of two choices. Firstly, I can run the hill from here, and it'll be, it'll be a decent sized hill, but it'll be quite shallow. The alternative, which is something I've been thinking about doing, is putting a building in here, so probably about there, because it can come up to where the pavement is. And you can start the hill from there, which, again, works. It's a little bit steep. I think what I'm actually going to do is put a retaining wall to about that sort of height behind here, have like a 2-inch high base, then build the hill up there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So the first thing I need to do is mark out about where I want the thing to start. And I'm going to go with about there. I'm just going to draw this on as a line, just with a pen, like that. And that's going to be a retaining wall. And then I can have buildings along here. There's enough space to put another house or something here. My original thought was having a pub and then an open area, but since I'm doing a pub that side, or I'm planning on it, and this will probably just be 2 houses, or a house and a shop or something like that. So, get that out of the way. What are we going to make this hill out of? Well, I'm going to be using, I'm going to come down here and find some, because I've got an offcut piece, this stuff. This piece will probably actually do quite nicely. So that's going to be the sort of the base height of the thing. I've got to take the foil off. I've got to cut it to shape. Before I do any more handling of that, I'm going to put some gloves on, because this stuff is horrible and it really, really does make a mess as well. So, on with a pair of gloves. Gloves are well worth getting. I think gloves. I've got a box around here somewhere. Oh, here we go. I've got a box of them. Good for protecting your hands. They keep glue off, can keep paint off. Some of this stuff, it's a bit of a skin irritant. Bare wood can be a bit of a skin irritant as well. It's just one of those things. So what I need to do is work out which way round I want to do that first. Probably that way. That's going to go in there. And what I need to do is, using my trusty bread knife, is work out roughly where I need to cut this. And I'm going to say about there is going to be the first cut. I think the song said the first cut is the deepest, but there we go. Excuse the noise, this stuff protests when it's being cut. But it does cut rather easily. So that, the reason for doing the cut is I can get this to sort of go in a bit further. So yeah, I'm going to have to cut a few blocks out of this, but I'm going to carry on with this. It's a sort of a little bit of an iterative process, but I've got that into there. So what I can now do, if I can get my ruler, is mark out roughly I was just going to try and press it in, but I don't think that's going to work terribly well. Roughly like that. That'll do. And it is literally just a case, I mean, I'm using a bread knife, but modelling knives work quite nicely for this sort of thing as well. I'm going with a bread knife because it's easier. So I'm just going to bring this in. Let's move it out of the way slightly here. You can see what I'm doing. What I need is somewhere I can put the knife through it. To be honest, this bit of the layout doesn't have a deck, so that works quite nicely. As you can see, this stuff does cut really easily. And this is a serrated knife, which helps. Angle that slightly, I'll try to, so I can. There we go. See how well that fits. Yeah, I'm hoping the offcut will be enough to do the next level up, is the idea. So here we are back over here. It's not quite on the line, it's this side of it. That's actually good because that's actually something I want, is it to be on the waist side, so to speak. And there is probably like that, and it's then going to need shaping a little bit. Don't shape. There's a level to how much it needs shaping. Go back over here. This is going to have another layer put on top of it. It's going to have some filler and other bits and pieces added, so it's probably not too bad. And I'm leaving the foil on while I'm cutting it, because it makes cutting it a lot easier because it doesn't break up quite so much, which is useful. Right, so if I come back round here, now see it's not quite up to where the line was. Not that big a deal, it being away a little bit at the back. I can cope with that. So that now needs a bit more chopping off at this end. So again, as I say, iterative process here. Just come back. But, yeah. Now there was going to be another video the other day. I've started looking at adding some lighting to some buildings, and I encountered various problems. It got a little bit frustrating, so I stopped. Always worth noting, that is always an option. You don't have to carry on. If things aren't going to plan and it's getting annoying, stop. If you don't, you're going to find you start hating everything, so don't do it. So now I can hold that roughly in place. Again, sorry about the sound like torturing rodents. So that piece will end up about there. This edge here is not completely straight. That is something I do need to fix. The rest I'm not too bothered about. That edge needs to be straight. This is going to have a wall put along it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but I'd rather it was a bit better than it is. So I'm going to go in and just try. Slight problem with this bread knife is it does bend a little. Especially when you're trying to cut a large piece. And that's a lot better. So that is going to go in there. So what I need to do, I'm not going to glue it in just yet. I'm going to make the next piece first. And the next piece is going to be this bit. So again, I need to, probably that way around actually. This will obviously be sloped slightly. But this actually takes me up to my track level. So what I'm going to then do is put another piece on top. And then I'll be putting like a strip in there and I'll build that bit up with filler. So the first thing I need to do is lop this end off slightly. Yeah. and I want this one a little bit closer to that end because basically I can. So this is going to get cut along here. Probably like that'll do. Obviously reasonably close. Again, I shall come back over here with this. This does make the most god-awful mess when you're doing this stuff, so that is one to watch out for. Again, if I make slightly smaller cuts, I've probably got a bit more control over this. Back to the tortured rodent sound. I used to have pet rodents, and I made a part of a gaming board using this technique, and they really did not like the noise of this, so I ended up having to go outside to do it. Right, so that's going to go there. Again, it needs this end here cutting. It's not quite where I wanted at that end, because again, it's not quite square, so I'm going to have to come back into this here and try and square this up a little now. There. It's one of these doesn't have to be exact items, but that works. That's fitting across there quite nicely. So again, I need to trim this side, which I should do in the same way I did before. At least roughly. For anyone wondering why I'm not using a hot wire cutter for this, I don't have one. Fairly simple method, really, reasoning, really. Right, now, slightly frustratingly, I don't have another offcut to sit on there. I do have another sheet of this. It's one of those, it'd be really nice just to have another offcut piece. So I'm going to make the next bit out of a larger sheet, which is going to be a real pain to work with in here, because I don't have a huge amount of space to deal with this thing, which is about 4 foot long. So what I'm going to do is mark out something that is roughly the same size as the piece I've already got. I'm then going to cut that, and I'm then going to make it a bit finer. So if I stand you back a little bit here, maybe you can appreciate the problem slightly. This piece is huge, so I'm going to chop it across here and then cut it down to size, and then I've got the other bits I can use for other things. That's the idea. There we go, and that piece can go back into the depths under the layout as it's not necessary. Right. A few other comments I've had recently as well. Kelly. Welcome, Kelly. Yes. Commenting on the video I put up, the little post I put up actually about the somewhat frustrating experience. Yeah. Just go play trains. Funnily enough, that's exactly what I did. I started out, I've got another freight vehicle to do a review of, so I thought I'm going to have a look at doing that, and that I just wasn't happy with it. I wasn't in the mood, I wasn't doing it properly, so you haven't seen that, and you never will, because the footage is now long gone. Yeah, just wasn't happy with that either, so that's gone. And in the end I just thought, well, while I was doing that, I realised actually what I was enjoying doing more was just driving the trains around, so that is what I spent the rest of the evening doing. There's also a lovely little comment. Sorry, wait until I've finished screeching at this. Yeah, a lovely little comment based on what did I do when I was younger? What did I enjoy at that point in my life? And to be honest, actually, a lot of it was very similar to this. Another piece. Well, Yeah, needs another piece coming up, but it's going to get shaped, so I'm not that bothered by that. Yeah, I had a model railway. I suspect a lot of people my age did. Well, I know quite a few of my friends did. Yeah, this is sort of what we spent our time doing. This and tabletop gaming and making model kits and blowing small model kits up. Always entertaining. Seeing whether cheap model Spitfires could fly from upper story windows. Spoiler alert, they can't. But unless you try these things, you don't know. So, yeah. A bit more of that. Piece back on there. This bit now needs basically score along the surface a little bit. Something like that'll do. So yeah, I mean this is the sort of stuff I grew up doing. Not so much with this, more polystyrene, which, if anything, makes even more of a mess. And still makes a noise. But yeah, this is sort of what I spent my time doing when I was smaller. And yeah, my first layout was, well, it wasn't really mine, it was more my father's, but it was, double O. Started out as it was basically 2 loops. I still remember the trains. There was a Lima Class 33 and a Lima J50. At some point, because a J50 is suitable for the layout I've got here, I'm actually very tempted to get an old Lima J50. Yes, it'll get a needlessly expensive DCC conversion done to it, just because if it doesn't, I won't be able to run it. Yeah, so that's potentially a tad pointless, but is going to happen anyway. But just purely for nostalgia, so why not? That layout didn't last very long, actually. The problem was it was a 6x4. It was folded to a bedroom wall, and if anybody's built a double O layout in 6x4, you'll realise you don't actually get. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. You don't actually get all that much layout out of it. So, yeah, it was basically 2 loops and a few sidings. So that got replaced by a much more complicated N-gauge layout in the same area, and basically that was my introduction to N-gauge, and I stuck with that for a number of years. Obviously, what passes for adult life occurred. Yeah, I decided that was all long gone. I didn't have the space, the time, or the money to do anything about it. But I always wanted a layout again. I spent a lot of time daydreaming about one. Yeah, so I just carried on with that. Right, they're the basic blocks done. Yes, it needs a bit more doing up here. Like I say, that is going to be other stuff sitting on top of this. This is going to be the hill. I want to shape it. This is going to get a wing wall cut in, which is going to get built pretty much straight off the bridge, where the bridge is where it is now. There's a gap at this end of about that. Very scientific measurement there. A gap of about that, 1.5 inches. That all needs rebuilding, but the idea for today is to get this done and stuck in place. Probably won't be doing a great deal more than this today, because there's some other stuff I need to get done today. So, the bottom bit's fine as it is. Don't need to do anything else to that now. Along here is going to get a wall. That's just going to be carred and is going to be brick clad. That will happen at some point. The wall will be a little bit higher, probably to about here. It'll match the same sort of style of this. There'll be a little carved parapet and then a parapet wall along the top, and then, yeah, be a hill going up. And fencing and other bits and pieces can go in later. So I need to work out how I want to shape these now. And I think this one, it's going to be reasonably steep, but you know, that sort of makes sense. About 45 degrees, maybe a bit steeper. It'll look a bit daft from this end, but we're not really going to look at it from this end, and it'll get slightly less steep as it goes over to that side. So the thing I need to do, take that one out of the way, over there, is work out what I want the angle on this one to be a bit like. So I think, and this is going to cut not right to the bottom of this because I've got to have a little bit of edging along here. So I think this is going to come along here, sort of like that. Now this is where a hot knife cutter would be much, much, much better. But I don't have one, as I previously mentioned, so I'm instead going to have to do this with a knife and then probably some sanding paper. And that's really going to make a mess. So that's nowhere near the line I just drew. Get rid of that bit. This can be done in just little blocks. And then smooth it off a little after. It actually makes life easier because I can see what I'm doing. But this stuff, it's basically Kingspan insulation. This is B&Q fodder. B&Q? No, this is wick. That's where I get a lot of my insulation stuff and bits of wood and so on and so forth from. Piece out. Just sort of check that's doing about what I want it to. It's going down a little bit, so I'm now going to modify where I'm cutting it slightly. A bit further up. That's going in completely the wrong direction, so let's start that again. There. Right, see what that looks like. So that bit needs smoothing off, but that's about the angling I want. So yes, anyway, so I had an N-gauge layout for a number of years, and again, it wasn't really mine, but it sort of was, but it sort of wasn't. I mean, anybody who's any parent who's wanted a model railway layout will be well aware of what I'm talking about here. They become a "this is for the children" honest endeavour, when in practice, like hell are they? I think anybody who's ever had a model railway will be well aware of what I mean by that. Right, so this needs a length of this chopping off to about there. So I'm just going to line this one up. Yeah, but for years, and then eventually I got to the point of where actually I sort of had the space for a layout. I had the opportunity to build in a loft. It got a bit over ambitious. It started out as well, originally it was going to be N-gauge. Then it sort of morphed into being 00 because I was wanting to play with the electronics, and this was a little while ago, and to be honest, DCC wasn't really what it is now. It was around, the layout I built was DCC, but it was quite basic, and what I was playing with, the stuff I wanted to do didn't really fit inside N-gauge trains, so that I just became a 00 layout at that point. Right, I'll carry that on like that. I'll just carve this roughly, and yeah, so that carried on. I mean, it was never more than a single loop. It was a big single loop. It was a 24-foot by 13-foot layout. It never got beyond the single loop stage, however. Just a little bit frustrating. Single loop with a station at one end, which had some run rounds, had a load of bay platforms, and the stock was a bit of everything. I had the tender drive LNER Flying Scotsman. I had that set up. I got the set that when it had 4 coaches in it. That was the one I had that started it all. So that needs another lump taken out the middle, which is fine. I had a load of coaches because the place I found had broken the sets up and was selling the coaches off at like 10 quid each. So I bought, I think I had 8 of the corridor ones and 10 of the non-corridor ones, which is quite nice. I wanted the B12 set as well, but I never got around to getting it. So I had a lot of non-corridor coaches. I didn't really have anything to pull them, but that was life. So the modelling purists, please forgive me. They ended up being pulled by an EWS Class 66. Now I knew, I knew enough. I was working in the industry. I knew enough to know that was just no. That was never going to be a thing. It wasn't going to look right. But that was what I had, so that was what I ran. I did have some freight wagons rather. I didn't have many locos. Everything was second hand, apart from that one Flying Scotsman set, which I got new. What else did I have in terms of locos? Oh, I had an old Hornby HST, which I promptly blew up, giving an important lesson in DCC decoder fitting at that point, because that produced some very realistic looking smoke, rather reminiscent of my little J52, although specifically due to a wiring cock up on my part rather than anything else. There was a Hornby 225 set, which I was given. A very close, well, a very good friend of mine at the time, Loretta, is where I was living. Well, and my wife, we were both living there. She'd be a friend of my mother's. Yes, a Hornby 225 set, which was interesting because it ran really rather well. Its 2 Mark IV coaches ran really rather well, and the DVT wouldn't run at all. Anytime it went anywhere near a pico point, it just went no and fell over. So yeah, that was just one of those things. But it was fun, and that was the main part of it. It was fun. The buildings were a curious mix of super quick and Metcalf. So I'm just hacking at this now, just to get something that looks about right, I think. Yeah, now I can shave a little bit more off the bottom of that, and that's actually about where I want it to be. So I'm just going to shave this piece here a little more. Ironically enough, actually the bit I was messing around that I said was screwed up is about actually where I want it to be. So that's going to go there. Like so, just, well, in theory there, but in practice it might come forward a little bit. Let's see, it will come forward a little bit. And that piece is going to sit on top there. That little bit there will need sloping out a little. But yeah, there's a hill. So yes, I had that layout for a while. It was the reason it never got beyond a single loop was I knew it was not going to last very long. The intention was, here I have a layout, I'm going to play with this, I'm going to learn from this, I'm going to build up some stock, and then at some point in the future I can build a proper layout when we've got our own place. Yeah, anyway, so probably the best part of another decade passed after we left there before I could do anything else. Unfortunately, all the kit I had, a Lens 100 control set, lovely little set. It was in a garage. The garage roof collapsed over a winter. Everything in there got absolutely soaked and ruined, which was a bit annoying. By the time I found out about it, most of the locomotives had rusted to nothing. They were never going to run again. So it all got binned. I had been practicing a little bit though. I'd put some lighting in some of the coaches and other things. So I've learned some stuff which I will be carrying on here. I'm just going to try and get rid of this. I don't need to get rid of all of the silver. I just need to get rid of enough of it that I can get some glue to stick on this. And find something heavy enough to put on the top of it to hold it all in place. And then obviously I've got to wait for the glue to dry. So that'll be that. So this episode is basically me messing around with foam and rambling. But yeah, so I lost all of that, which was slightly annoying. Years passed. We're in another property. We've moved here. And lockdown came along and I thought, I'm bored. Like a great many people during lockdown. So I thought, I'm going to have a look at this model railway business again. Didn't have a great deal of money at the time. Buying a house is quite expensive. a little bit. And this is where my N-gauge layout upstairs. I promise I will show that at some point. The reason I haven't, rather embarrassingly, is I need to undig it because it's on my desk, and this is my desk, and you've seen how tidy down here is. Well, my desk is worse, should we say? So, yeah. So that's why that one's not been shown. I'd also, I mean, it doesn't run at the moment. I'd quite like to power it up before I show it. I'll do for that one. It won't run properly because the point motor systems and stuff are probably never going to work again. I think there's certain bits I've robbed from underneath it. But if I can get one of the loops running, I'll show that. That is in BR Blue. That was designed from the ground up to be a DCC testbed. That has actually got more electrical blocks than this 00 layout has. And it's 4 foot by 2 foot 6. It's got various electrical blocks which are like 3 inches long in places. It was designed to be an experiment with automation, which worked. I did actually. I got bits of it automated. I had it had the ability to have 2 trains looping on one of its twin ovals. They would follow each other. The faster one would slow down as it caught the slower one, and so on and so forth. That all worked. I was quite happy with that. So again, that was a learning exercise. And then I was always planning either to use the garage here, which is just a bit over 16 foot square. It's quite a large double garage. Used to be a stable. Take the camera out there at some point and show you inside it. It's rather quite interesting in there. It's sort of like a compound building. It was a stable. It was then extended, and the roof is a rather curious shape as a result. The problem is its roof is not weatherproof. And when we had the house re-roofed, I had a quote for re-roofing the garage at the same time. You know how sometimes you get a quote from a tradesman which is basically an "I don't want to do this" quote? Yeah, that was what happened. So when it was nearly 5 figures, the answer to that was no. It'll get done at some point, but it's not getting done anytime soon at that sort of price. I'll find somebody else to do it in the end. That sort of made the decision because it was a choice of do I work in the cellar or do I do the garage. Garage obviously was the preferred decision, but until the house roof was getting done, I wasn't going to make a decision on that. Hence the little N-gauge layout upstairs. But I came down here and I sort of realised because of a lot of what I want to do is easier in 00, I'd go 00. I had the space. The original concept actually was to more or less make the same layout I had in the sort of the 4x2.5, just down here in N-gauge. It was the original idea, and it was go from having trains that are 3, 4, occasionally 5 coaches in length to having full-length trains. But it would mostly have been trains running around. The layout upstairs, it's twin loops, it's a small TMD, and it's a through station with what's basically an ingle nook, but designed for coaches. It was designed as a parcels depot, and I've got quite a few Mark 1 parcels vehicles, full brakes. So I thought, I'll do an ingle nook, but I'll do it differently. I'll do it with coaches. So that was set up. And the idea was really, I was going to do that down here. The only addition it was going to gain was some hidden sidings. I did have a few other layout ideas, but it's like, well, actually, that one would be quite straightforward. Move from set track to streamline track, yada yada. I've got all the rolling stock. It's all DCC. All the locos I've got upstairs, and there's only 5 of them, are DCC fitted. They're not the world's most reliable locomotive collection. There's 2 Lima Class 86-ish. And I call them 86-ish, and if anybody's ever seen a Lima 86, you'll know why. They're not the most accurate of models. They're quite funny, really, in many ways. But I like them. They work. They actually work quite reliably, which I was very, very surprised at. Right, I'm now going to clean this mess up before I put some stuff down, so excuse the noise for a second. And that now means recharging, so I can't do any more with that. But thankfully, that's that bit done. Now, this is going to get Copydex. I could use PVA. PVA takes an age to dry, so I'm just going to use Copydex for this. So here we go with a bit of copy next. Doesn't need vast amounts of it. Let's just do the old trick of do that and then spread it around, I think. That's why I'm going to use as a spreader. I know. I'll use a bit of this. There we go. Spread some of this around. Yeah, so that's sort of my my layouting history. It sits upstairs. And the layouts, what have we got? I've got an old Graham Farish 101, a 3-car, which I was quite pleased with actually. Whoever had it before me had done some terrible things to it. There's an absolutely massive lead weight inside it, which I know why they did it. I just wish they hadn't, and I wish the listing had made it clear they had, because I probably wouldn't have bothered. Actually, it looks a bit hideous, but you know, it runs. This is the old one with the bogie drive, so it got driven by a bogie. There we are, that worked. Right, let's put this in place, which is going to go there. And that is going to get a weight put on it for a minute or two. When I say a weight, what I mean is a pot of paint. Yeah, there's another one down here somewhere. Yeah, there's a Class 25, which is one of the 5-pole motor pool era Graham Farish models, and she's lovely. She really is a good runner. Except when I got her, she wouldn't go around right-hand bends, which is, I suspect, why she was on eBay at a rather decent price. I must say, it was quite an appealing price. Yeah, but as a non-runner, when I got her, yeah, there was a break in the wire. Fitting DCC decoders in the old pool era locomotives. That's fun. Surprisingly simple, actually, as well, but fun, if that makes sense. Right, so that's going to get a few more weights added. Right, I'm going to end here. And the wibbling. Well, there's one more bit. I've got a Class 47 as well, which I tried to speed profile, and she went back, and she went forward, and she got up to about half the speed on the thing, and this poor loco was just getting slower and slower. She does not like running for extended periods of time, so I gave up on that. But they look good, and there's little experiments in weathering, so I will have to show all of that at some point. But yes, that's that. So I came down here, and eventually Leopard Street was born as a terminus fiddle yard with a reversing loop. It's not quite the layout I originally wanted, but space as space is. So there we go. Yes, so I'm going to leave that to dry for a little while. Once that's dried for a bit, I'm then going to stick the next layers on, and see, it's not completely flat to the bottom. Not completely bothered by that. All the hard work's done. It'll just be a case of pop down and do a bit and then sod off again. So, next time I see you will probably be the next episode, which will probably be either Thursday or next Saturday. I've got various bits and pieces. I've reordered all the stuff I need to do the lighting in the buildings. I'm rather hoping that'll turn up next weekend. We can have a little look at doing some of that properly, because it's fun. The lighting system I'm using allows me to do all sorts of weird lighting effects, so I'm going to quite enjoy doing that. I'll show that one off. But anyway, until then, thank you very much for watching what has been a little bit rambly when I sort of cut a bit of foam. Ian over on Train of Thought has just done a watching paint dry video, which I found highly entertaining. Go and check that one out. He's painting some paving slabs, but there's a lot of the way he presents makes it a lot more interesting than it could be. People joke about I'm watching paint dry. Paint doesn't dry by itself, it needs supervision. So yes, but anyway, I'll catch you all in the next ones. Nearly at 1,000 subscribers, for which I'm eternally grateful. Thank you to you all. And here's just a final little update. The hill section's in, top piece is still drying. I got the little retaining wall in, that's stuck down, that's a piece of XPS, some foam core and so on and so forth. The shop is just sort of sitting there, just as a bit of spacer. The bus is back, and I've extended the road to the front. But it's coming on. It's coming on. So yeah, that's that. I'll catch you all in the next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye.